Hi friends. It's Thursday, July 9th at about 8:10 in the morning, Eastern Time. I'm Gina. I'm excited to be here with you today to discuss the current astrology. We talk about astrology in general and any questions you might have. I am live streaming every day in 2025 and feeling excited to be underway here. I've really been enjoying the process. So please feel free to leave any questions in the comments and I'll take a look at the end. We'll probably be here for about 15 or 20 minutes today. I want to do a sort of brief overview look around the chart, just sort of a big picture, putting it all together where we are right now, conversation today, and then discuss whether or not there's a benefit to live astrology. Obviously, I think that there is, which is why I'm doing this. So I'll discuss that a little bit. And we'll probably talk about a few other things along the way as well. And then we'll do any questions or comments at the end. Okay, so let's take a brief look around the chart here and sort of just put everything together. There's always so much to talk about in astrology. So when we had the Mars-Pluto opposition, we had a separate video about that. I've mentioned how that's an off sign opposition now. It will come back into alignment, keep in mind, when Mars moves back into Leo. Not for quite a few months, a couple of months in March. And then that will happen again since Mars will be direct. But Mars is retrograde right now in Cancer. So there's always so much to talk about. You know, we can talk about all of these aspects, all of these transits. All of these lines here show something that's going on in the sky. We have all of these planets and all of these different places and all of these points. And then the way that they interact with each other is separate pieces of information. So we can talk about each of those in isolation, but there's a lot to be said for every few days, just sort of stepping back and taking a look big picture. So, you know, it makes sense to sort of go outer planets in for this. So, let's start with Pluto. I'm just going to turn, I have some notes written down about each of the planets with some key dates. Just in case we want to talk about anything with that. So yeah, so let me pull up a magnifier too, which will just sort of help with clarity as we go around the chart. I am thinking about getting some sort of screen share technology and learning how to use it, but for right now, we're on this. So, okay, yeah, I like this. This will be helpful. So ignore the ascendant. That just has to do with what's happening, where we are, what time of day it is, what's on the horizon. It's the morning. Sorry. It's the morning time, so the sun is just over the horizon. The sun has just risen. And so usually lately we've been filming during that Capricorn. We've been filming just around sunrise, but today I'm a little late, and so the sun has moved on, and we're talking while the ascendant is in Aquarius. And so we have Pluto involved in that, but ignore the whole ascendant part of it. I hope also that my goal, my intention is to make this channel something that works wherever you are in your study with astrology. You can enjoy it if you don't really want to look at the visuals and you're not really trying to learn any of that, and then you just want to listen about the astrology. And then also, if you're learning a little bit, hopefully this can be a place to help you and support you along that path. I know it's a process. And really, we're all learning astrology, whether you're tuning into that or not. You know, the symbols, even if we're just talking about the signatures of the planets, you're studying, we're all studying astrology, that's for sure here. Okay, so Pluto is fairly newly in Aquarius, and Pluto will be here until 2043. So wherever this is in your chart, And it almost doesn't even matter for the purpose of this conversation right now. There's a place in all of our lives. There's a part of our lives. There's a part of us that is ready for the next step. And Pluto in Aquarius is the next step. There's something very sort of futuristic about it, very um, revolutionary. It's never been done before. If there's something going on in your life that feels empowering, that feels completely new, that feels almost a little futuristic, that might be Pluto and Aquarius working with you. Although it is my opinion that it really won't be until the sun comes up to meet Pluto that we're really, really going to feel this in earnest. Um, because the sun will sort of activate, every time planets are conjunct, it's I love this about astrology. I love that when planets interact in different formations like this, these are different transits. If they're, 4 signs away from each other, it's a trine. If they're 3, it's a square. If they're 2, it's a sextile. Um, if they're across the way, it's an opposition. But um, when they're together, when they're conjunct, that's not actually considered a transit. It's its own separate thing because those planets sort of merge energy in that moment. So it's an activation when the sun goes over a planet, when the planet is in that sign for the first time. So I think that sort of sense of personal empowerment might not really show up in a lot of those things I just said about Pluto and Aquarius until the sun meets up there. And when is that? That is late January. It's January 21st, when the sun moves into Aquarius and meets up with Pluto. But Pluto's bringing in some awesome revolutionary energies for us all to work with right now. A place in our life that is feeling really very future, really very next. Ooh, there we go. Let's talk about Neptune. I always remember Neptune because it looks like that trident, Poseidon, Neptune. Neptune right now is in Pisces and is one of these planets that is all around this Pisces Aries axis. We can't ignore this when we're looking at the current astrology right now. I don't know if this is helping. Maybe I just need to point today because I'm jumping around so much that trying to mess with that is aggravating. I'm sorry if it's aggravating to all of you. I'm learning on my feet here. Okay, so Neptune is in Pisces, but there's so much in here. Late degrees of Pisces, early Aries are some really exciting degree points in the sky right now. So Neptune's at 27 degrees. Neptune spends about 15 years in a sign, and it will move into Aries this year at the end of March 30th. It will conjunct the north. Well, Neptune enters Aries March 30th. April 2025, it meets up, conjunct the North Node in Pisces in April. Okay, yes, because it re-enters Pisces on October 22nd, 2025, and then doesn't shift into Aries for good until January 26th of 2026. And actually at that point in February of 2026, Neptune and Saturn will be conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries, which is a really interesting conjunction. And they get close to it this year. See, there's this time with March and April. And then the summer's really interesting too, where it's just, I don't even know how we're all going to break it down as astrologers because it's Venus is here now already in Pisces. Venus will go through a majority of the sign and then go retrograde and then go direct. That will involve the Aries point as well, going back and forth over that point. The North Node's moving into Pisces while Neptune and Saturn are moving into Aries. It's just a lot. It's just a lot around that area, guys. If you have any planets or points in late Pisces or early Aries, those planets are really going to be activated in early 2025. You'll be working with the signatures involving those planets, whatever they are. So I actually have some stuff there. I have Mercury in early Aries. I have the Sun in early Aries. I have Mars in late Pisces, but not too late, 20 degrees. And what I'll say is that I'm looking forward to this, right? I'm not seeing this as a negative thing. I'm seeing this definitely as a positive thing. Um, the way I think of it, sometimes people can get nervous when they see that something's about to happen in their chart. But it's like we all have things we want to happen in our life, right? And we're sort of waiting for those things to happen. Something that you're working towards, something that you're wishing for, something that you're um, aiming towards. And so seeing in the chart progress, movement, activation is a good thing. I feel like it shows us that something's going to happen and we want things to happen. And even in life, I have learned, more and more as I've gotten older and through studying astrology, that even if a transit looks challenging for some reason, even if it's I don't know, Pluto transit or a Saturn transit or something like that, all of those things ultimately lead to my growth and everything too. They actually really do. So then I can look back in the rearview mirror and say, yeah, that was a challenging time in this way, but because of that, I found astrology, right? Or I moved to this area and I'm so glad that I did that, or whatever it is. So I've learned to sort of, oh, let me at least make this big. I've learned to not fear a lot of activity in my chart, a lot of transits to my chart, because it's movement, it's activity, it's good stuff. So that's Neptune. Neptune is very, very active right now. And I think just all this stuff happening in Pisces right now, there is that sort of mystical, almost spiritual um, dreaminess to our experience right now. And that really is going to continue on as we move forward. There's an element of sort of surrender to the climate right now. I think that as we move with these nodes into Virgo and Pisces, that will continue to increase. We'll talk about it, but it's like a letting go of the old way of moving through the world, and letting in more of an instinctual listening to our inner voice guidance system. I feel like in the past there was more programming around, like I feel like the whole world as we move into this Virgo Pisces axis shift, um, that we're all letting go a little bit of working on these old programmings of like, okay, the way to get ahead is to show up at this time and leave at this time and do what I'm supposed to do, or just kind of like following the guidance system of the old era. We can feel now that it's a new time and it's a different time. And part of what we're trying to do is show up really authentically, because that's the way we are sort of our best selves, if we're really connecting, if we're really present in the moment. And so realizing that listening to our own guidance system, taking care of ourselves, following our joy, our happiness, um, is listening to our inner guidance, getting away from things that don't feel good, or trying to find ways to make those things feel better when we do have to do them. All of that can be really um, helpful, and I feel like there's a little bit of a shift with all of that coming in as these nodes move into Pisces, Virgo. And the Pluto in Aquarius helps with that too. You can see there's like some real era shifting type stuff going on. Okay, so then we have Uranus as well in sort of the later degrees of a sign. We have Uranus here in Taurus. Uranus will be entering Gemini in July. By that time, Jupiter will have moved on. Jupiter will move into Cancer in June. So, Uranus has been sort of disrupting us in places that felt really stable for a while. since like 2016. Wherever you have Taurus in your chart is a place where it's difficult to change. Um, Sometimes like Taurus energy will actually make a decision for things to not be as good as they could be, knowing they could make those changes. Um, just because they don't like change so much. You know, wherever we have that in our chart, we just really like stability. And Uranus has been shaking that up since about 2016. So there are some areas in your life, some themes, whether it's related to planets this connects with or, you know, the sector of the chart, where things that felt like they would never change changed a little bit. And I think that when Uranus moves into Gemini this summer, there's some really neat astrology. And I feel like it sort of like ignites our mind in a different way. You know, Jupiter will be happier in Cancer, Uranus will be happier in Gemini. And I think that that story will be wrapped up. And I think we're toward the end of it now. This story around some themes in our life being, uh, you know, things that were stable changing a little bit. Before I move away from these outer planets, I just need to show one thing. Okay, so I'm going to mark this because it'll be easier to see. I'm going to mark these 3 outer planets. I hope that this shows up the way I'm hoping it will. Okay, so we have Pluto at 1 degree now of Aquarius. So Pluto is already transitioned into the next sign, but Neptune is working on it. Neptune's in the late degrees, and Uranus is in the late degrees and working on it too. When these guys shift over into the next sign, we come into this really neat alignment that's called a minor triangle. So basically, 2 sextiles and a trine, right? So these guys will be sextile to each other. That's a symbol for sextile, and these 2 will be trine. So I feel like the outer planets working in such nice harmony with each other, that will really feel good. Like it will provide a feeling of understanding and clarity about the world around us, about what's happening that we kind of don't have right now. Right now, you know, the outer planets relate more to what's happening in the world more than what's happening in our personal lives or for us individually. Make this big. And them being sort of out of this alignment, I think is a little bit, feels a little bit disturbing. It feels a little bit like, especially when it's just going to be happening for a few months, it feels like, what's going on? You know, what actually is happening? What actually is going on and what actually is going to happen next? And I think that by the summer, when we come into this alignment, which will hold for quite a while because these planets are so slow moving, it should feel really nice. Okay, so we talked about Saturn and Jupiter a little bit too, and then really what I want to say about Mars and Venus is that right now, I talked about this in yesterday's report. I will link that at the end of this video. But I think it's significant that we have Mars retrograde and we have Venus exalted, right? That's so interesting. So Mars is retrograde in Cancer, sort of deeply working with us with some emotions. And we will have a full moon here in Cancer when this moon makes its way around in just a few days. We'll talk about that when we get there. But having Mars retrograde in Cancer, and at the same time having the moon full in Cancer, that's an interesting sort of emotional signature that we're coming into more and more. But so Mars going through this sort of emotional process, and then Venus exalted in Pisces. Venus in her absolute favorite place to be. It's interesting to put these 2 things together, and I will link that at the end. But I think that we're deeply working with emotions right now, and we're deeply working with relationships. right? That's part of what's happening in what this current astrology suggests. So it's not easy to put all of these things together, is it? Isn't it? It's like when you're studying astrology, when you're interested in astrology, trying to hold what's happening with Pluto, hold what's going on with those outer planets and how they're changing signs, how we have a Venus retrograde coming up, how we have a Mars retrograde right now. It's a lot to sort of hold all of those different things all at the same time. And I understand that. So when I was thinking about today's conversation, I was thinking about the sort of idea of live astrology and why I thought it might be helpful or interesting to do some live astrology. Part of it is because there's many reasons, but one is there's so much astrology to talk about. There's so much. I could never ever cover it in my horoscopes. For my horoscopes, I pick like 3 to 5 aspects for the whole month and focus on them. Please do check out my channel and check out my horoscopes for January. I'm finally getting Pisces up today. I sort of last minute decided to do these live streams every day. And so it's completely thrown me off and I'm way behind. Pisces will go up today. And then my February horoscopes, I'm going to start with Pisces and go backwards. And so those signs that got them late will get them early for next month. My apologies. Um, but there's so much astrology to talk about, I couldn't possibly do it in monthly horoscopes. You almost need to be looking at astrology every day in order to be on top of what's happening astrologically. And there's a lot to talk about beyond the chart too, and I hope to do that. We can talk about these symbols, we can talk about why astrology works, we can talk about your charts. There's so many different topics really that can be covered. And so part of the reason that I think this works is because I want there to be a conversation back and forth with all of you. I want to answer your questions. I want there to be a place where I can do that other than readings, which of course I do charge for because, I take quite some time to set them up and prepare them. But if there can just be a bit of my time where I can answer some questions along the way about for people who are studying astrology or just who are interested in learning more about their own natal chart where I don't charge like that, YouTube is just such an awesome platform for people to connect without having to have that exchange. They put the ads up or whatever, but um, once I'm monetized, that will be lovely, and I'm hoping that will come soon. I guess, admittedly, that's part of why I wanted to do these lives as well. I have been working on this channel for over a year, and I'm like right around that line of monetization where I'm there with subscribers, but sort of right on the cusp with watch time. So putting more content out that's relevant right now will get that watch time up, because while I have videos, no one's going back and watching videos from September of 2023 unless it was a significant month for you or something, right? For the most part, I need to put a lot of content out as we move just to have enough to sort of be in that place with YouTube. And again, that's because I would love there to be an avenue for me to talk about astrology, which I've been studying really my whole life. I've always enjoyed studying with you guys, where there's like a free channel for us all to connect, and the ads just kind of support me putting that time in. That would be lovely. Um, Really, another thing about it with the live astrology is that, and this is really the number one reason, to be honest with you. I'm always looking ahead. I'm always looking ahead. I'm thinking about the February videos now, but really beyond that, I'm thinking about the summer because I keep processing what's coming up, and then you get further and further ahead, and um, you really can talk best about the astrology of right now. Forget July. Let's look at today. Let's look at this feeling of right now, because right now we're in it. Right now we're feeling it. So we can say, whoa, those outer planets being off of their alignment, out of that sort of neat configuration that I showed you before, that makes the world around us feel a little uncertain. And oh, it felt a little better when the moon moved out of Aries yesterday and now is in Taurus, the moon in Taurus. I always like to eat good food when the moon is in Taurus. Whatever it is, we can connect with the current astrology, the actual current astrology. I'm not looking 6 months ahead, a year and a half ahead. As much as that's true, when we do sit here and talk about the current astrology, I'm always jumping ahead, right? I'm always talking about 6 months into the future. So, apologies for that. So, I guess that's sort of what I have to say about all of that for now. Wait until March, you guys. There's so much exciting astrology ahead, even coming on every